40K's Phi was a planet of tangled jungles, jagged cliffs, and misty ravines, a world where every shadow could hide predators or pitfalls. Among the foliage moved the Galloping Gorgons, slightly larger than alligators, quadrupedal predators with bright orange scales, streaked with jagged black spikes, long spiked tails, and small bioluminescent orange and teal feathers along their spines. Their wide, cavernous mouths contained dozens of jagged teeth top and bottom, capable of snapping through armor, while three glowing yellow-orange eyes scanned the environment with uncanny intelligence. Acidic spit sizzled against rocks and fallen leaves, leaving a faint green sheen wherever the Gorgons marked their territory. Sergeant Krupp Ironfang led the first Marine patrol into these jungles, clad in half-black, half-orange power armor, a single shoulder pauldron made of a skull glowing teal blue. The patrol quickly discovered that the Gorgons were nearly unstoppable alone, fast, intelligent, and violent. During a skirmish with alien raiders, Krupp found himself face-to-face with a rampaging Gorgon. In a desperate, almost absurd act, he shouted a terrible pun. "Why did the alien cross the battlefield?" "To get turned into a statue, obviously." The Gorgon froze, blinked its three eyes, and a low rumble echoed through the jungle. It paused long enough for Krupp to leap onto its back, gripping the custom blackened steel saddle, reinforced with grips and stirrups. The Marines quickly realized the beasts could be tamed, but only with humor, discipline, and the right diet. They introduced the Xeraphan egg fruit, a large eggplant-shaped fruit with swirling blue and red bioluminescence. Fed to the Gorgons, it heightened their aggression, obedience, and hunting instincts. From that day, every Marine learned that jokes and fruit were survival tools. A Gorgon unmoved by humor, or deprived of egg fruit, was a danger to friend and foe alike. Through trial and error, Marines trained these predators to hunt in tandem, coordinating charges, snapping jaws, and acid spits in deadly precision. Soon the chapter became legendary. A platoon of half-black, half-orange Marines riding orange and black spiked Gorgons, shouting terrible jokes, wielding massive cleavers, chainswords, and spiked hammers, carving through alien raiders and wild beasts alike. The jungles of 40K's Phi became both a proving ground and a playground, where predator and rider merged in a terrifying and absurdly humorous symphony of teeth, claws, and laughter. The first chapter of the Galloping Gorgons was born, a fusion of terror, humor, and indomitable partnership. Chapter 2. The First Bond. The jungles of 40K's Phi were alive in a way that unnerved even the most seasoned Space Marines. The foliage teemed with predators, the air thick with mist and the scent of alien flora. Amid the tangled vines and jagged cliffs prowled the Galloping Gorgons, slightly larger than alligators, muscular quadrupeds with bright orange scales streaked with jagged black spikes, long spiked tails, and bioluminescent orange and teal feathers along their spines. Three triangular glowing yellow-orange eyes scanned the environment, wide mouths filled with dozens of jagged teeth, and acidic spit hissed onto rocks and leaves as a constant reminder of their lethal potential. Lieutenant Soren Kale approached one particularly aggressive juvenile Gorgon near a cliffside ravine. The beast's acid spat sizzling onto the stone, its wide jaw snapping threateningly. Kale remembered the first lessons taught by Sergeant Krupp. Humor and patience could tame the untamable. Shouting a terrible pun, he vaulted onto the creature's back, gripping the reinforced blackened steel saddle. The Gorgon froze, blinking its three glowing eyes, then rumbled low, acknowledging the Marine as its partner rather than prey. The chapter quickly formalized these bonds. Every Marine was assigned a Gorgon, fed Xeraphan egg fruit, the blue and red eggplant-shaped fruit that enhanced strength, obedience, and aggression. Training involved synchronized jungle patrols, controlled charges, and repeated humor-based commands. A Gorgon unamused or deprived of egg fruit could lash out unpredictably, a danger to both foe and rider. Over weeks, the Gorgons became true partners. They anticipated their riders' movements, responded to subtle gestures and verbal cues, and fought with terrifying precision. Marines wielded cleavers, chainswords, and spiked hammers while riding in perfect sync with their mounts, turning the dense jungle into a deadly ballet of teeth, claws, and laughter. By the end of these trials, the Galloping Gorgons were no longer wild predators. They were warriors. Each bond was personal, a union of predator and marine, humor and ferocity. The chapter solidified its reputation, a force that combined lethal efficiency, jungle mastery, and a darkly comedic style that left both allies and enemies in awe. Chapter 3: Siege of the Stoneborn. The Galloping Gorgons faced their first true test when the Stoneborn, a merciless alien warband, seized a jagged plateau deep within Thyracus V's jungles. Lieutenant Soren Kale led the vanguard, mounted atop his orange and black spiked Gorgon, whose wide jaw dripped acid, ready to tear through enemy lines. The plateau's jagged cliffs and dense undergrowth gave the Stoneborn cover, but the Galloping Gorgons' training in jungle maneuvers made them unstoppable. Sergeant Krupp Ironfang followed with a squad of riders, each Gorgon slightly larger than an alligator, bioluminescent orange and teal feathers flickering along their spines, wide mouths lined with jagged teeth, and acid spits sizzling against rocks. The Marines shouted terrible jokes mid-charge, each pun or grim quip distracting their mounts just enough to maintain control while the predators tore through the enemy. The chapter deployed its first Gorgon artillery, massive las cannons mounted on specially trained beasts, firing over the jungle canopy. Alien shields melted under the precision blasts as riders rode alongside, swinging chainswords, cleavers, and spiked hammers in deadly tandem with their mounts' jaws and claws. Between charges, Marines fed their mounts Xeraphan egg fruit, the blue and red bioluminescent fruit that amplified aggression and loyalty, ensuring each predator struck with controlled ferocity. By the day's end, the Stoneborn were either dead, fleeing, or petrified by the sight of the orange-scaled juggernauts. The first major battle cemented the Galloping Gorgons' reputation, a lethal, absurdly humorous force, predator and marine united in unstoppable synergy. Chapter 4: The Relics of Thyracos. Deep in the jagged jungles of Thyracos V, the Galloping Gorgons moved silently, slightly larger than alligators, with bright orange scales streaked with black spikes, wide, cavernous mouths filled with jagged teeth, and 3 glowing triangular yellow-orange eyes. Small bioluminescent orange and teal feathers flickered along their spines, casting eerie light on moss-covered ruins. Lieutenant Soren Kale rode his Gorgon toward the ancient relics of Thyracos, massive weapons said to grant immense power. Among them were the skull cleaver of Zerith, a chainsword inscribed with glowing runes, and the thornhammer of Kravos, a spiked hammer capable of shattering armor with a single strike. From the shadows, alien Stoneborn emerged, wielding energy blades. Gorgons lunged, jaws snapping, acid dripping, tails lashing. Marines shouted terrible jokes, each pun controlling their mounts as predators and riders moved in perfect sync. A Gorgon artillery unit fired its las cannon over the jungle canopy, obliterating enemy shields. Between assaults, Marines fed their beasts Xeraphan egg fruit, the blue and red bioluminescent eggplant-shaped fruit that heightened obedience and aggression. By day's end, the relics were secured, enemies destroyed or fleeing. Predator and Marine had merged in lethal harmony. Tales of the Galloping Gorgons, armoured in half-black, half-orange, wielding relics atop orange and black spiked beasts, spread throughout Thyracos V. A force defined by humour, teeth, and unstoppable ferocity. The dense jungles of Thyracos V hid more than relics, they hid enemies. A band of alien raiders, calling themselves the Crimson Maw, lay in wait along a narrow jungle ravine. Lieutenant Soren Kale led the Galloping Gorgons, slightly larger than alligators, with bright orange scales, jagged black spikes, wide jaws filled with jagged teeth and glowing triangular eyes. Their small, bioluminescent orange and teal feathers shimmered as they crept silently between vines and rocks. The ambush struck, but the Gorgons were ready. Acid spit hissed on stone and alien armor as Marines shouted terrible jokes, synchronizing attacks. Sergeant Krupp Ironfang swung his spiked hammer while riding a Gorgon, smashing through alien shields, teeth snapping around him in a blur of orange and black. Behind, a Gorgon artillery beast unleashed a las cannon volley over the jungle canopy, obliterating enemy positions. Between charges, Marines fed their mounts Xeraphan egg fruit, the blue and red bioluminescent fruit that amplified aggression and loyalty, ensuring the beasts struck with precision. The battle ended in chaos. Crimson Moor warriors either dead, fleeing, or petrified by the sight of orange-scaled predators with glowing eyes and deadly teeth. The Galloping Gorgons had once again proven that predator and marine, humour and ferocity, were an unstoppable combination in the jungles of 40K.
Chapter 6. The Assided Defenders. The jungle of 40K grew darker and more foreboding as the Galloping Gorgons approached their sleeping grounds, a jagged rocky plateau surrounded by twisting vines and dense fog. The beasts, slightly larger than alligators, bright orange with jagged black spikes, wide cavernous mouths lined with jagged teeth, and 3 glowing triangular eyes, moved cautiously. Their bioluminescent orange and teal feathers shimmered softly in the mist. This plateau served as both sanctuary and fortress. Carved cliffs, hidden crevices and pools of acidic liquid acted as natural defences against intruders. Lieutenant Soren Kale and his riders patrolled the area, reinforced blackened steel saddles clinking against scales. The chapter had taught every Marine the ritual of feeding Xeraphan egg fruit, the blue and red eggplant-shaped bioluminescent fruit that kept Gorgons obedient, aggressive, and focused even in their sanctuary. Suddenly, alien stone-born scouts attempted a stealth attack. Acid spit hissed against stone and enemy armor as the Gorgons lunged from hidden crevices, tails whipping and jaws snapping. Marines shouted terrible jokes, synchronizing with the beasts' attacks, turning humor into a weapon of control. By the end of the encounter, intruders were either dead, fleeing, or coated in acidic burns. The Gorgons returned to their sanctuary, sprawling in the rocky pools, claws gripping the ground, eyes glowing, tails twitching. Predator and Marine had once again merged in lethal harmony. The plateau, the beasts, and their riders were 40K's unchallenged defenders. Teeth, acid, and humour forming an unstoppable triad. Chapter 7. The Cleavers of Chaos.
The jungles of 40K echoed with the clash of steel and the roar of galloping Gorgons, slightly larger than alligators, bright orange with jagged black spikes, wide mouths lined with jagged teeth, 3 glowing triangular eyes, and bioluminescent orange and teal feathers shimmering in the mist. Captain Valdrin Kalestorm led his riders into a deep ravine where rogue alien warbands had fortified themselves. Each Marine wielded custom melee weapons designed for mounted combat, chainswords etched with predator runes, spiked hammers reinforced to withstand Gorgon momentum, and cleavers forged to slice through alien armor in tandem with the mount's jaws and claws. The riders coordinated their attacks with a darkly comedic ritual. Each shouted terrible jokes or grim puns, amusing their Gorgons while maintaining battlefield control. Acid spat hissed across rocks as the beasts lunged, tails whipping enemy formations apart. Between assaults, Marines fed the Xeraphan egg fruit, the large blue and red bioluminescent fruit that heightened aggression, loyalty, and focus. Amid the chaos, one Gorgon snatched a fleeing alien leader, shaking it in its jaws before depositing it at Kalestorm's feet. The relic cleaver of Xerith was raised high, runes glowing as the battle reached its climax. Predator and Marine moved as one, unstoppable and absurdly lethal. By nightfall, the ravine was silent except for the Gorgons' growls, acid sizzling in puddles, and the echo of terrible jokes. The chapter's legend grew. Humour, teeth, and custom weaponry were the Galloping Gorgons' signature. Chapter 8. The Final Roar. The skies above Thyrakos 5 were dark with storm clouds, lightning flashing over jagged cliffs and dense jungle canopies. The Galloping Gorgons, slightly larger than alligators, bright orange with jagged black spikes, wide jaws filled with jagged teeth, 3 glowing triangular eyes, and bioluminescent orange and teal feathers shimmering through the mist, prepared for their ultimate battle. General Vorath Drakemane led the chapter, atop his massive Gorgon, wielding the skull cleaver of Zerith, runes glowing in rhythm with the predator's heartbeat. Enemy warbands, the ruthless obsidian talons, attempted a coordinated assault on the jungle plateau. Marines rode their Gorgons in tight formations, acid spits sizzling across rocks, tails lashing, and jaws snapping with deadly precision. Every Marine shouted terrible jokes mid-charge, each pun a ritual of control, ensuring the beasts struck in perfect harmony with their riders' swings of chainswords, spiked hammers and cleavers. The Xeraphan eggfruit was distributed freely, its swirling blue and red bioluminescence amplifying aggression and focus. Gorgon artillery beasts fired over the canopy, las cannons cutting swaths through alien lines, while mounted predators trampled, devoured, and scattered the enemy. By nightfall, the battlefield was silent except for growls, acid sizzling in puddles, and the echo of terrible jokes. Thyrakos 5 had witnessed the final roar. Predator and Marine united, jungle and humour as lethal weapons, relics gleaming, teeth flashing. The Galloping Gorgons had cemented their legend, unmatched, terrifying, and absurdly deadly, in perfect symbiosis.